her part. So anyone that isn't able to make it today, then obviously we can pass this on to them, which will be a good thing if some of them are struggling to get onto it today. We will be putting everyone on mute. You can turn your cameras off if you want to, it's entirely up to you. But everyone will be on mute just to avoid any background noise. I know we've all got dogs barking and builders working and cars going by, so it just helps with that. And because of that, we're going to ask that any questions or comments, that if you pop them in the chat function, Becky's monitoring that today. So at the end of the session, we'll have that Q&A where we can look through those chat points and see if we can answer any of the questions. We've got quite a few people in various roles within the council that are actually able to answer the questions that you want to know. So I will now pass over to Paula. Oh, let me just show you the agenda. Sorry. So the agenda. So we're going to start with Paula, who's going to give an introduction to the event, and then we're going to look at an overview of the Resilience and Mental Wellbeing Fund, and that's going to be run by Nisha. And then we're going to have a question and answer session so that everyone can ask those questions that you've been thinking about. So if you do think of anything and you don't want to forget it, just drop it in the chat. And then I'll pop back at the end, really, just to give you a quick overview of the Warwickshire Skills Hub and what we do and our role in this, and how we can support you as businesses if that's something you want to look at as well. So I would say that's over to you then, Paula.
Thanks, Heather. Appreciate that. So I think Becky's going to share a few more slides with you. Brilliant. So just to introduce myself, so you know who I am. I'm Paula Mawson. I'm Strategy and Commissioning Manager at Warwickshire County Council. So I work in the people group, and I lead one of the 3 commissioning teams in that part of the council. And my team is the one focused on health, wellbeing and self-care. So we're very much thinking about how can we support people to maintain their well-being. How can we think about supporting people to keep their resilience and independence in their own homes? And we have a real focus on family well-being, on children and young people, but right through to our older adults too. So there's a whole raft of services that we commission. One suite of the services we commission is focused on particularly on mental health and well-being. So it's very much about how can we support people to think about their mental health, to think about their mental well-being, to seek help at a really early stage, perhaps when difficulties are first starting to appear. And there's a whole raft of things we commission, from online support, face-to-face support. We've obviously got lots of virtual and digital offers at this moment in time. So I will pop a link in the chat box so you can have a look if you're not familiar with some of the services that we commission, just to give yourselves a bit more information around that piece. But if we move on to the next slide, please, Becky. I think we all know, both probably personally and professionally, that this past year has been a really challenging time. I'm not sure if you're having technical issues, Becky, but I can't see the slide moving on my screen. But I'll just keep talking anyway. I think we all know this whole year has been a really challenging time for various reasons, but particularly for our mental health. The impact of lockdowns, the need to socially distance, the impact of, particularly for businesses, the uncertainty about economic futures, furlough schemes, having to navigate your way through some really uncertain times has kind of particularly impacted on people's mental health. And earlier on this morning, I was looking at a research piece that the Mental Health Foundation have done all the way through the pandemic to look at the impact on people's mental health. And there's some really interesting and sad statistics that are coming out. So things like we know that loneliness, people are feeling much more lonely and socially isolated as a result of the pandemic. Back in March 2020, their research indicated that 16% of the adult population was feeling lonely and socially isolated. February 2021, they were reporting 26%. So that's a quarter of the population are feeling acutely lonely and socially isolated. But within that, there are some particular groups that have been really impacted and disproportionately impacted. And one of those being our children and young people. And their research found that 48% of 18 to 24-year-olds were feeling lonely and socially isolated as a result of the pandemic, which is a huge, that's half of our kind of young adults really starting to struggle as a result. And we know that the pandemic itself has also impacted on people's anxiety levels and the feelings of worry. So 62% of people back in February last year, February 2020, were really worried about the impact of the pandemic. And even now, more recently in February 2021, so a year later, 42% of the population are still feeling anxious and worried as a result of the pandemic. So the toll it's taking on all of us, and we can probably all reflect on our journey through this past year and the impact that it's had on us and the difficult days that we've had. And for some individuals, that's a direct impact. So it could be that they had COVID and it's really impacted and left them feeling worried and anxious for their future, perhaps because they've got ongoing health issues. Could be, because they lost loved ones to COVID and are now struggling with their feelings of grief and bereavement. Or it could be those that have been perhaps more indirectly impacted, that just the impact of, having to live and work in very different ways that have caused pressures and challenges to their mental health and well-being. So for all of these reasons, we felt that actually the services that we've got are great, but there's more that needs to be done to support people's mental health and well-being. So if you move on to the next slide, please, Becky. So Warwickshire County Council does prioritise mental health and wellbeing, and we work in partnership with our colleagues across the NHS particularly, and our colleagues in voluntary and community sector organisations to support people to look after their mental health and wellbeing. And as I said, there's a range of services that are already available, so I will put the link in the chat box and you can have a look at those. I've made the case already about the links to loneliness and social isolation and that need to support people to rebuild their social connections and think about ways to cope with any anxieties or worries or low mood or stress and distress that they may be feeling. And some of our usual coping strategies we're not able to, or we haven't been able to do. So we haven't been able to pop round and have those cups of tea and those chats with people and have that face-to-face connection. For others, it might be going down to the gym and kind of burning off their worries and their anxieties or improving their mood that way. So this for us now is about how can we support people to kind of either get back to doing some coping strategies that have worked for them in the past or to develop new ones. So back in November of last year, the council published its COVID-19 recovery and restoration plan, and that included an explicit priority to support the mental health of Warwickshire's residents. And on the back of that, my team was given additional funding to launch a programme of work. So our total funding for the programme is 1.3 million, but £750,000 of that is forming this fund that you will be hearing about today. And really for us, it's about how can we reach those individuals who are struggling, who might be finding life difficult at this moment in time and perhaps don't have access to ongoing support at this moment in time. And that's why we were really keen to kind of talk to workplaces who perhaps don't have access to ongoing kind of support programs through employee assistance programs, knowing that as a group of workplaces, you might particularly value the opportunity to bid for this funding. So that's really kind of by way of introduction to the background to why we wanted to put this fund in place. And I'm going to hand over to Nisha now, who'll kind of talk you through the detail of the funding, how to apply, what kinds of projects we're looking for. And as Heather said before, if you do have questions that pop up as we go through, please do pop them in the chat, because we'll try and, ones that we can answer simply as we're going through, we will answer. And then obviously at the end, we've got time to kind of go through the questions in more detail. So over to you, Nisha.
On mute. It's not going to be helpful, is it? Right, thank you for that, Paula. Yes, my name's Nisha Metovic-Bai and I'm the Wellbeing and Resilience Commissioner. So I'm going to give you an overview of the Warwickshire COVID-19 Mental Wellbeing and Resilience Fund and the application process. So like Paula said, this is £750,000 and this grant fund is available for community and voluntary sector organisations that include parish and town councils, as well as small to medium businesses that do not have access to an employee assistance programme, in order to support Warwickshire's residents' mental health and wellbeing both during and throughout the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. This also includes an opportunity to bid for capital funding. So we want organisations to think about making physical improvements to buildings and access to outdoor spaces to make environments more mental health friendly. So the funding that's available, we have 750,000, of which we've provisionally allocated 250,000 for capital spending. Now the fund that's available, investments are under 3 thresholds. So the first threshold, there is a minimum that you can bid for, and that's £6,000 up to a maximum of 10,000. Then we have threshold 2, which is over 10,000 to a maximum of 25,000. And then threshold 3, 25,000 and over to a maximum of £50,000. Okay, so the first round of funding will be launched this Friday, which is Friday the 21st of May, and it will run until Monday the 21st of June at noon. We might have a second round of funding if funding is not fully allocated in this first round. Now, this is one-off funding and it is to respond to the mental health impacts of the pandemic. So in your application form, we will be asking you to outline how you seek to ensure sustainability of the project as part of your bid. The funding must be spent within 12 months of funding award date. We do have some restrictions. The first being it must be a minimum of £6,000 you can bid for. And if you are successful and you require investment under threshold 2 and 3, so that's over £10,000, with the exclusion of capital funding, you'll be allocated that fund in 2 stages. So 50% of your funding will be allocated on funding award date, so at the beginning, and then you'll get the next 50% following the first submission of your progress update report. And I will talk to you later on in the programme about the evaluation and monitoring, but that will be quarterly. So 50% at award date, and then 3 months later, you'll get the next 50%. So why are we doing this fund? This slide gives you the intended outcomes and benefits of what we wanted to do with this fund. So we want businesses, projects, initiatives at a local level to support the following outcomes. We want to improve mental health, wellbeing and resilience of our residents and local workforces by responding to the pressures of the pandemic. If residents have a mental health concern, whether that's been exacerbated by the pandemic or it's emerging as a result of the pandemic, there's the support here. We also want to provide a range of support encouraging residents to begin or return to activities that they used to enjoy to support the development of their resilience and wellbeing and establish a sense of social connection. I think we're all aware of what this last year has done around the lack of social engagement and how that's impacted us. We also want to create safe spaces within the community where people that are experiencing mental distress whilst out in the community can go for a period of time to unwind, feel safe before they continue with their activities. And we want to create physical environments where people can connect with nature and create a sense of well-being. As well as that, what we want to do is support specific trauma, suicide and self-harm prevention and bereavement interventions. Whilst doing all of this, you're working in partnership with people with lived experiences in the design and delivery of the support. So you know there's a need for this, hence why you are delivering it. Sorry about that. Yep. So who can apply for the fund? So we want proposals to include support for those that have been directly impacted by the pandemic. So you could be recovering from COVID-19, but also we want that indirectly impacted, so increased anxiety due to the pandemic. And who are we wanting to bid for this? Like I said before, community and voluntary sector organisations and small to medium businesses that don't have access to an employee assistance programme. Who can't apply for funding? Individuals, party political groups, organisations with significant free uncommitted reserves, NHS trusts, and the county council or district and borough councils. So the application process. So the applications are made using the council's e-tendering system. Some of you might have heard of this system before. For those that don't, it's called CSW Jets. Now, remember, you're going to get these slides at the end so that you don't have to write anything down now. Providers must be registered with this system to be able to express an interest, download the documents and apply. Again, like I've said, the applications open on Friday, so you can't access this until Friday the 21st of May, and you must submit by 12 noon on Monday the 21st of June. You can submit at any time, but the funding decisions will only be made following the deadline date. Now, for whoever's used the system, or if you haven't used the system, when you're using something new, potentially you might need a little bit of support. So what we've done is we've created 3 help sheets to help you navigate this tendering system. So the first is registration, how you register onto the system. The second is managing your account, because some of you might have had an account and you're not sure of your details or how to navigate that system. And then lastly, locating and managing a tender. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a web page link, and on that web page link are these 3 documents that you can download. So once the application form is live, like I say, it won't be live until this Friday, the 21st of May. You'll be able to view this funding bid under tenders, and you can search for it using the code or the name there. Using CSW Jets is totally free to register and use. Now, from the 21st of May, if you have any questions or queries relating to this funding opportunity, you must do it by the correspondence function in CSW Jets. And those 3 documents will help you to understand where that function is. But if you are struggling or having any issues using the system, you can email on that email address there. But please, like I say, do look at the 3 documents. They will support you to navigate that system. So evaluations. There'll be a panel of county council officers, including experts, that will evaluate these projects. Again, we might need to come back to you for some clarification, so please be ready to respond. The quicker that you'll be able to respond is the quicker that we can move forward with these application forms. Now, because we don't know the interest that we're going to be getting from this grant funding, it's very hard to determine the approval process and how long this evaluation will take place. So what we will be doing is communicating with you regularly via CSW Jets on how we are progressing with the evaluation and approval process. And again, through CSW Jets, that's a system that we use to engage with you and communicate. We will be telling you about successful applicants, and you'll be receiving the relevant forms and agreements that will be required if you are successful. So monitoring and evaluation point of view. So every organisation that successfully applies, you must support the evaluation process. We want to know what's going on with the money that we've been giving out, but equally we want to see how that's impacted, local communities and workforces. But it will be specific to the threshold that you've applied for. For example, the evaluation process for bidding for £6,000 will be different to bidding for £50,000. And we will work with you around the evaluation documents that we want you to complete to capture impact and outcomes. Equally, we'll be using recommended tools to measure change and impact. So that example there, WEMWEX, is a wellbeing scale. But we would be talking to you throughout that process around what tools we're going to be used to address that. Equally, using your skills as an organisation of how you capture and evaluate your programmes. The biggest thing is we want to kind of stay updated with you throughout these 12 months. So we will be asking for quarterly progress update reports. Now, this is where, when I said at the beginning, if you're bidding for threshold 2 and 3, what will happen is you'll get 50% of your funding at the beginning, and then at that quarterly progress update, you'll then get that next 50%. So the next 2 slides are quite lengthy, but what we wanted to do is, and it's not an exhaustive list, but we wanted to give you a snapshot of the things that projects might include. So if we look at the second bullet point, promote mental health initiatives to help working age people at risk of stress, anxiety and depression, and support people experiencing mental distress to be retained in paid employment. What we want to do is we're looking at projects that could include creating social activities, including volunteering and intergenerational activities to enhance wellbeing, supporting those that are experiencing poor mental health, and aiming to reduce significant risk factors amongst people with or without a mental health diagnosis. What we want to do is support those that are experiencing mental distress and feeling suicidal and at risk of self-harm. We also want to provide support for those that have experienced trauma, particularly as a direct or indirect result of the pandemic, and the opportunity to create mental health friendly environments where people experiencing mental distress whilst out in the community can go for a period of time. And when we're thinking about workforces and people going back into their working environment, is there an opportunity where enhancing physical environments that promote mental health? So, for example, thinking about making spaces light and airy, developing access to open spaces, creating relaxation spaces. Also, the consideration around supporting efforts to address health inequalities within local communities and neighbourhoods. So this is the web page that we've created, where you'll find out more information and everything that we've discussed today on that site. Again, how to access CSW JETS. The application forms open this Friday, so it's this Friday, 21st of May, and it must be submitted by the deadline of 12 noon on Monday, the 21st of June. What's going to happen at the end of this presentation is we will send you this information via an email so that you have those links available. Thank you very much. Have I stopped sharing? I think so. Yes. So it's now the opportunity for you to ask any questions that you do have. Like I say, we've obviously opened the chat function. So please, if you do have questions, now's the time to ask them.
I can see there's a couple of people writing, so.
We're quite a small group as well, aren't we? We could probably just take hands up as well if anyone wants to just kind of ask a question. Looks like we're not going to get many, Richard. Oh no, we've got a hand up. I can only see an initial, I'm afraid, which is S. So please, if you've got your hand up, do chip in.
Okay, I've unmuted you. Sam?
Thanks, Becky. You got a question? Is it Sam? No. They're definitely unmuted, Becky.
Yeah.
It's saying that they're offline.
Okay. Might be that we need you to see if you can get your message in via the chat. So I think we've had a chat message from Tracy, which I'll read out because that means I can think about it when we do. So it says, thinking about my clients, could you give an example of how a small to medium enterprise who is based in a service office building could spend this money? I have one client in particular who has 2 people who are really struggling mental health wise, but I'm not sure how to advise them how to spend this money when they don't own their own building or own space. That's probably quite a really specific question, and maybe it might help if I respond to that just with some broader examples of the types of things that we were thinking that might help workplaces. So thinking about some of your staff, you could have staff who have got mental health issues, who perhaps have periods where their anxiety could get quite bad and they might need a quiet, safe space throughout the day to go to. That's a place where they can just regain some feelings of calm to be able to then go back to work and continue their work. So you could apply for some capital funding to set up a quiet area that's relaxed, maybe a nice, armchair, some nice furnishings, some, a coffee table, things like that, that would create a nice, safe, contained space where somebody could just go and have a bit of quiet time, regroup themselves, and then go back to work and continue. So that would be one example of something you could do through this fund. You might want to think about, like, is there something your staff team want to do that would be good for their well-being? So, is there some activities that they think, oh, actually, maybe having someone come in and teach us how to do yoga, or run some yoga sessions for the team. They've gone through a really difficult year. We want to put on 12 weeks of yoga for them to all learn a new skill, to rebond as a team again, now that we can get back to some face-to-face things. And then, and then perhaps that's something that you as a team will then look to sustain yourselves moving forward. So it's those kind of ideas. And I would encourage you all to think really creatively and innovatively, about the types of projects and programs you can. And one of the things Nisha mentioned was, we do want people to, it shouldn't just be a person sat in their office writing their bid on their own. Get out, talk to your staff, ask them, what would help to generate a feeling of well-being amongst the team now? What are their ideas? Because then you can include that in your bid to show to us, actually, this is what people are saying they need, they want, and we're trying to use this opportunity to meet that need. So I hope that's probably not answered your question directly, but I hope it's given a flavour of some of the things that we think might be helpful. So certainly I'm just looking at Sam's chat. That's a really great example. If many of them are living alone and you want to do some team building with them and kind of think about their wider well-being as a team, definitely I would certainly encourage all of you to think of those kind of things. Talk to your teams, find out what's going to help them, and build your piece of work around that. And for no reason other than we all know, if we're feeling better in ourselves, we're typically more productive at work as well. So there's that real, we're well aware there's a link between how you're feeling and how you function, and and your functioning is in many areas, but functioning and at work is a really key aspect for all of us. So the better we feel, the better we function, and that's the link that that we're trying to make. So I'm glad it helped, Tracy. I've just seen your response. Any other questions or queries that people have got for us today? I can't see any hands up, and it doesn't look like any more in the chat. So I'm wondering, Heather, if we hand over to you, back to you, for a bit of a focus on what economy and skills can offer.
Okay, let's see if I can share my screen again. Oh, no, it's not that one. I need to share this one. And if I just bring that up and then I can just go through it. I'm not going to be great at sharing screens today, by the looks of it. Okay, so I've just got a few a couple of things to mention about the Warwickshire Skills Hub. So we're a fairly new team that work for Warwickshire County Council, and we have a skills hub where we look at supporting businesses in the Warwickshire area to upskill their staff, to take on new staff, to look at how they can improve their workforce skills. It's become really important now since we've had this dreaded last 12 months that have been a little bit difficult for us, for everybody. So I just wanted to mention 3 of our main programs that are really going to help businesses if you want to get in contact with us. So the first one being is that as a Warwickshire County Council, we have an apprenticeship levy fund. And that just means that if a business is looking to take on an apprentice, then we can fund that for you. So normally you would be looking at an employer contribution towards that amount. And as the Skills Hub, we can fund that for you, so you haven't got to put out any costs other than on apprentice wages. Anyone that comes to us tells us what they need, what they're looking for, and we will go and source the most appropriate training provider for you. Excuse me. And there are also incentives that are available from the government on top of that. So we would fund the apprenticeship for you, and we would also tell you about the incentives. So at the moment, until September, a business can get an incentive payment from the government of up to £3,000 per apprentice. And if that apprentice is under the age of 19, then you also get an additional £1,000. So you can get that £4,000 for an under 19-year-old, and that could essentially help pay towards their wage. It could pay for any equipment they might need, any uniform you want to buy them, any equipment for the office, or if it's a trade, construction, for example, then they would be able to have the money to buy those tools. So that's one of our biggest programs that we run at the moment. We also do an apprenticeship program which helps with the progression of an apprentice. So some of you may already have an apprentice working for you, maybe on a level 2 program, and you really want to keep them and you want them to go on to a level 3. Well, we can do that for you, and we can support that by giving you a cash incentive of £1,000, and that's given to you quite quickly, so that it's done at the beginning of the apprenticeship at the next level, so that you're not hanging around waiting for that money to come in. And the ones that are sort of most important, and I'm just going to read the dates for you. So we do what are called build back stronger workshops. So that, like a series of workshops that we run online, and they're designed to support you as businesses to upskill and reshape your workforce, looking at bringing in new talent with support and advice. Also, if needed, redundancy support, which we're hoping that you don't, but if you do, that's something we can support with and guide you in the right direction. So the Build Back Stronger workshops, we're getting experts in, guest speakers, tips and advice on what are the best things, similar to today, same kind of event where you can ask questions. And the next one is on the 4th of June, and then we have another one which is looking at how we can bring in new talent into your business. So all those will be on our website, and they will be on LinkedIn. We share everything a lot on LinkedIn. So if you wanted to look at the Warwickshire Skills Hub website, then you can go to skillshub.warwickshire.gov.uk, and that will also list all our projects on there as well. I hope that everyone's been able to hear me. I've not suddenly had a horrible thought I was sat there on mute talking to myself. I mean, they're just a few of our projects. We are doing more are coming out that are going to help businesses get back on track from COVID. Ones that support in getting apprentices into the workforce, but also ones that are looking at the wellbeing as well as this one. So if you need any more information, then the Warwickshire Skills Hub website will be the first port of call.
Thanks, Heather. And we'll put that in the email that we send out to everybody later. But we're right in saying, Heather, if organisations want some support with the application form, you're there to support them, throughout this process.
But for this fund, for this event, just contact us. We'll help you go through the forms. We'll guide you through it and make sure that everything is good to go. It's a fantastic project. I'm really excited working with you and working with the businesses that are going to come forward. I'm looking forward to all the ideas as well, seeing what they come forward with, because some of them are going to just be really, really good.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Heather. So what's going to happen now, unless anybody's got any questions, we're going to close the event. Rebecca and Lewis will be sending you an email with more information about the web page, the PowerPoint presentations. Obviously, the recordings will take some time to go onto the web page, so please be mindful. It might not be today, it'll probably be tomorrow. But we'll send you the link with all the contact details and everything that we've discussed today. Hope that's okay. And thank you so much for taking the time out and coming to today's event. So if that's okay.
Bye all.
We'll close. All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.